This is Duke University.
Global trade and environmental justice.
Human rights issues are still.
The term Ubuntu.
About the Alien and Sedition Acts.
Is making inferential discovery.
The importance of an archive.
The John Hope Franklin Center.
Hi, I'm Anthony Neal, and you are watching Left to Black. I'd like to welcome as our guest here today, Mr. Joshua Bennett.
How you doing, Doc?
Joshua is well known on the circuit these days for his spoken word poetry, but he's not just a performer. You know, Joshua has just recently graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, where he was a Rhodes Scholar finalist,
yes.
And will be leaving for Europe, leaving for England in a few days,
yeah.
On the Marshall Scholarship, and will be starting in the English department and graduate program at Princeton University next fall. A lot of stuff for a young man so far.
Trying, man. I don't know. A lot of applications, to say the least.
Now, folks who know about you now, they've seen the video that circulated now for about a month or so. 10 things I want to say to a black woman.
Yeah.
And initially it's this classroom footage, you know, that we see of you perform. And of course, you just recently did a very produced, almost music video for it. Talk a little bit about your career as a spoken word poet. I mean, you had the opportunity to perform for the Obamas.
Yeah.
You were a member of the cast of Russell Simmons Presents Brave New Voices on the HBO series. I mean, so you've been doing some wonderful work. You know, talk a little bit about what it's been like.
Wow. You listed a lot of it. No, I mean, it's just been a blessing, man, and a roller coaster ride, especially since I've only been, I guess, in the game, as it were, for about 5 years now. I just turned 22 last month. I started writing spoken word when I was 17.
Wow. And
I just have the opportunity to meet Barack and Michelle to perform in the Image Awards, which is really, I think, when the kind of crazy ascent in terms of popular media started. So in 2009, I performed at the NAACP Image Awards. I was invited by Stan Lathan, who's an incredible mentor of mine, brilliant TV producer, Sanaa Lathan's dad. You know all this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, in terms of 10 things in particular, I think for me that was a turn that I've recently taken in my work in terms of wanting to use in the spoken word as a way of putting out a message that is both empowering and entertaining. Right, that's something that's really important for me.
Now, of course, you're part, you know, of what we'll call the second tier of the hip hop generation. So not only are you listening to the beats and rhymes, you've also, you know, had access to this spoken word moment. You know, the Russell Simmons work and how folks like Saul Williams, you know, have become very, very popular figures.
Yeah.
Why go the route of spoken word instead of deciding that you just got to be a hip hop artist?
Yeah, I was never cool enough for that, man. I remember the first time I ever tried to bust a rhyme. I think I was in 8th grade at a table, and like Rock La Familia was really big at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Rock La Familia 2001,
Jay-Z,
Jay's album.
right?
Yeah, Jay-Z's album. And so everybody, you know, had the Rock-aware jean jackets, and like every other verse was about everybody was a hustler, and we were 12, and I was not a hustler. And so my rhymes were about, you know, playing Scrabble with my mom and, you know, playing video games. And I literally got booed, I'll never forget, got booed off the table, like, boo, shut up. You know, and after that, I was like, okay, well, there's got to be something else for me. And,
well, talk about that for a good. I mean, because part of what you're pointing to, at least in this moment, right? And I think we're seeing a shift out of it.
Yes.
But you know, masculinity is very constrained within hip hop. You know, you can only be one kind of dude, and we've seen some shifts, you know, because of folks like Kanye and maybe Andre 3000, you know, a few years ago. But there are some constraints, and how have you managed to negotiate that? You know, both in terms of trying to appeal to a hip hop audience, right? Because it's not like you just want a bunch of folks snapping their fingers, you know, putting candles up in the air when you're performing.
In the cafe with 5 people,
the appeal of your work is that, you know, it would also be something that would be attractive to cats who just want to nod their heads. Right?
I mean, I think a lot of that has been me just more directly engaging the audience for feedback, right? So I also do work in prisons on weekends, and I think what's been really powerful for me is just to link with brothers and see what works and what doesn't. Because I always want my work to be at the same time as it's empowering people. Like, oh, Josh can rhyme though. Like, if you want to battle, we can do that too, you know. And I want to always make that clear that the work is for everyone. I always want the metaphors to be on point as well as the message, and I think that's something that hopefully can bring folks from different walks of life into the room.
You have a particular interest, I know, in black masculinity.
Yeah.
And not just in terms of being able to reach an audience of young men, you know, and who can, in some ways, model your achievement, right, and model your talent and things like that, model your survival skills. But also as someone who aspires to having a real serious academic career. Yeah. You know, what are some of the things that drive your interest around Black masculinity?
I mean, for me, it was just never feeling like I fit. So whether it was that lunchroom table where, you know, I was scoffed at for my particular rhyme style, or whether it was getting to an Ivy League university and where everyone still wanted to be tough and think they were thugs, and I was like, this makes no sense. Like, what is this we have bought into where I cannot just be this, like, skinny dude that likes indie films? And I'm always going to come back to Scrabble because I love Scrabble. So why can't I be a Black man from where I'm from and love these things and love my mom and talk about loving my mom and respect and have female friends, have platonic relationships with them? Like, why are these things that are so often, you know, frowned upon from other dudes who I know even want that for themselves? And that was the thing. It seemed like a lot of the times that folks were buying into things they knew weren't profitable for them. And so I began to think about what is our obsession with what kills us. And I think that's really, you know, where my research started, was just meeting brothers that had complete, you know, spiritual and psychological investments in things that were destructive. And I want to pour more into that and see what's there, and hopefully find some sort of cure for it.
You're here on Left of Black, and I'm Mark Anthony Neal. We're sitting here today with Mr. Joshua Bennett, spoken word poet, scholar,
Oh, wow. We're gonna add that on to the resume.
performer for the Obamas. I know one of the things that has kind of driven your creativity and your poetry is your relationship with your sister. Can you talk a little bit about your sister, who she is, and what has been this kind of interesting and really incredible personal piece? I mean, I think many folks who've heard a wide array of your work are struck by this interpersonal, this very intense personal relationship you have with your sister, who's deaf.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, so I grew up in my family. I have 5 brothers and sisters, between 3 moms, my father, and just my home. And so Tamara is my half sister. She's deaf, and I was growing up. I was the only person in my family who didn't know ASL, right? So everyone else would sign. You know, they would tell jokes. They would talk back and forth with Tamara, and I was the kid in the corner who would just try to write her notes and try to have basic conversations. And all my research, you know, the work that I'm doing in England and at Princeton, prayerfully in the future, is concerned with the disability and Black identity, because part of it was just 3 of my siblings are disabled as well. So Tamara, my older brother Vaughn, has schizophrenia. My younger brother Levi has autism. So I was raised in a family where disability was celebrated, right? So Tamara's opus is not just a poem that's an apology, but it's also about a celebration of a physical difference and saying that her deaf identity was something that was beautiful and was praised by my family. So it was, we love you the same, not just because, you know, society says we should because we're your parents, but because you're beautiful and you were made the way you are for a reason. And so, I mean, Tamara's opus really came out of that, out of growing up in a house where disability was celebrated, but being too fearful of what it would mean to take the time to learn sign language, to break that barrier and communicate with her. And recently, due in large part to technology, you know, AIM, Facebook, texting, you know, I talk back and forth to Tamara all the time. And I'm looking forward now to, as I go abroad, to taking classes in ASL and just learning so we can communicate better.
I remember talking to you at one point, and it was about hip hop, it's about your sister, and the way that hip hop was one of the ways that you were able to connect with her, and the idea that the bottom, right, you know, the musical bottom of hip hop created something that both of you could relate to, right? She could feel it even if she couldn't hear it. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, her 20th birthday party. I mean, this is in the piece as well, right? At her 20th birthday party, I'll never forget. It was a room full of deaf folks, and it was Mobb Deep blaring out of the speakers, and there were folks dancing to it. Like, the bass was so heavy from this DJ, it was coming up through the ground and into their bodies, and folks were just jamming, you know, like they knew the lyrics and they were just vibing out. And I was like, what is this music that can break this barrier for this moment? We can all get together and dance, and you can feel the music is so hard, you could feel it in your body, you know? And after I saw that, I was like, man, there's something to this thing. This hip hop music.
Well, one of the things I'd like to do with Left of Black, you know, for many of my guests, is to kind of put them on the spot for a second.
Okay.
3 hip hop artists that you know, if you weren't going to have access to music for the rest of your life, and all you could do was grab 3 songs to take with you to be able to listen to for the rest of your life.
Okay.
What are those 3 songs?
Okay, the first is gonna have to be Lupe Fiasco and He Gets the Girl. Most Deaf, Fear Not of Man. Song absolutely changed my life. I can't lie, Biggie, Hypnotized.
Okay.
First time I heard Why for each?
Why those songs?
Okay, well, Lupe Fiasco and He Gets the Girl, which is actually one of his mixtape cuts. It literally embodied my whole experience growing up, where I was this nerdy dude that would want to step, to the cheerleader.
I can see that.
Yeah, and then like you try to step to the cheerleader, and in real life you don't get a date with the cheerleader, but in that song he does, and the cheerleaders are nerd too. And it was, if we're talking about blackness and legible blackness, right? That was a version of Black identity I never heard on wax, which was I'm this nerdy dude that is shy, likes video games, and will approach you respectfully in a cafeteria. I'd never heard that before. So that's that. Fear Not of Man, I mean, that track just blew my mind. Like, you talk about, come on, like,
yeah,
crazy. And you talk about spoken word, it wasn't even, I guess it wasn't even a poem in the formal sense, but when most is just going off the top.
And Fela, right? Using music from Fela Kuti. Right?
Ripping it, you know what I'm saying? So you have the signifying there, right? You bring in Fela into the mix, and he's literally just telling truth over that track. Fear not of man, because man must die. Like, it's talking about in a hip hop generation and moment where we are praising, folks as if they are God and have control. He's talking about, nah, y'all don't control none of that, man. Like, we are beautiful because God made us, and that's it. And I was just like, man, for you to say that on record, powerful. And Hypnotized, I know that throws off the first two maybe a little bit, but man, you can't tell me Biggie didn't make the illest party tracks ever, man. Like, you throwing that boom, like, you just know it. Yeah. And I miss that, because I feel like I haven't heard a lot of songs recently, and this is, I don't like nostalgia just as a practice, but I'm not gonna lie. In the first 5 seconds, it's Hypnotized. You know what I mean? And it's just recognizable, like, and it's Papa, it's undeniable swagger. It is, I am in the building, and I'm a big black dude that loves myself, and I'm fly. And I can appreciate that, man. And I can appreciate that a lot.
You're watching Left of Black. I'm Anthony Neal. We're here with Joshua Bennett, and we're going to coax Mr. Bennett to spit a little freestyle for us in a few minutes. Left of Black.
This poem is called J Dilla as My DeLorean. Even the greediest crack fiend will still pop lock for free if you put on the right song. Will forget his addiction if for only a minute and reminisce about the taste of quarter water sipped through innocent 10-year-old lips on 1989 Brooklyn brownstone steps. He will remind you that the music is in all of us. See, I was 12 years old the first time I heard Tupac. Headphones blaring stories of guns and glory, unlike anything my suburban ears had ever heard. I was addicted, and the rhythm of the bass drum was my smack, so I'd smack my veins and inject verses till my arms were covered with all the latest tracks, snorting lines of Curtis Blow until all faded to black, and I woke to find a brand new Jay-Z album in my backpack. Couldn't backtrack or fall back like would've passed that, so I skipped time. Used J Dilla as my DeLorean and went past that sea. My daddy left, so I had to write. With my right and left, just to right the wrong seat left, check. Like kings in danger during chess, but I'm more like a queen, liable to move in all directions on any given beat. I get death, move swiftly on corners where young men act obtuse because they were never able to see life from the right angle. Some limited perspective renders their vision acute. Hearts colder than 45 degrees. Never went to class, so they skipped the first 4 letters of the alphabet and end lives with ease. Breathe. Remember that your heart is just a drum machine, and that we are all hands in the same crowd, all waves on the same frequency. See, we are hip-hop. I am hip-hop. I am the first bullet that hit Sean Bell. I'm a crack pipe in a pregnant mother's hands, a project building on fire, a prison inmate writing the illest verse you ever heard from the gas chamber. I'm the handcuffs on his hands and the shackles on his mind. I'm 4 little girls, the Jenna 6 and the Little Rock 9. I'm 3/5 human and 5/5 warrior. I'm a king, nor I'm Rodney King, nor I'm Martin Luther King, crip walking on clouds with Malcolm X. I'm Barack Obama. Matter of fact, I'm Barack Obama's grandson, trying to catch a cab in Manhattan. I'm a blood, throwing up my hood, rolling deep, ready to kill a nigga. I'm the Ku Klux Klan, throwing up my hood, rolling deep, ready to kill a nigga. A contradiction. See, hip-hop is just like Halloween. A worldwide masquerade where rappers display acts of buffoonery not seen since Mass's days, because we used to be free, but keep running back to bondage like backward slaves who gladly give up the rights to what we write in exchange for chains. And so it's no wonder that after all this time, the terms remained exactly the same, because little black boys just want to play the game, become super coons who hip-hop from courts to courtrooms because rims, whether they are on cars or backboards, all sound exactly the same to them. So if you ask me what I love about this culture, I would say everything and nothing. That it has killed as many as it has saved, that it has moved as many as it has paralyzed, and that somewhere in a back alley in the South Bronx none of us will ever step foot in, there is a crack-addicted man, turntables in his eyes, a song in his heart, and a world that may never be ready to listen.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.